Hi, this is Julie, and welcome to Throwback Thursday. In honor of Mother's Quest turning 5, this season 7 of the podcast will bring episodes to you every Thursday. In addition to new episodes, we'll also share some powerful conversations from the archives. Keep in mind while listening that you may hear about some events or offerings that are no longer current. But whether you've heard this episode before or it's new to you, I hope you'll find something here as relevant as ever to light your way. This Throwback Thursday episode comes to you while I'm away on vacation at my happy place, UCLA's Bruin Woods in Lake Arrowhead. While here for the week, I've made it an annual tradition to take off all my social media apps from my phone, truly unplug, and be present. The inspiration for this came from this week's guest, Macy Stafford, whose personal commitment to putting down her phone and becoming a hands-free mama led to a hands-free movement, several powerful books, and most recently to a new audio journey called Soul Shift Sessions through a partnership with Sounds True. You can follow the link to explore this for yourself in the show notes. This episode was originally recorded during a challenging time in our pandemic, March of 2020, while we were sheltering in place and just after the killing of George Floyd. There's no question that we face continued challenges. I hope this episode sparks renewed hope in the power of presence, fulfilling our unique purpose, and authentic connection. Now onto the show. Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to 2 high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self. I'll be right there. Where was I? Hi, this is Julie. Before I share this powerful episode with Macy Stafford, I want to acknowledge the pain and sadness so many of us are feeling at the killing of another Black man by a police officer in the death of George Floyd. Rachel's gift is to invite us to be present and purposeful in our lives, and that same presence and purpose calls us now to take that pain and turn it into deeper understanding and action. To support that, in the show notes, I'm including a link to an episode I recorded a few years ago with the co-founder of Mothers Against Police Brutality, Sarah Mercuria, and to a set of anti-racism resources that Rachel shared in a post she wrote today. Also in that post, Rachel offered these words from her new book, Live, Love, Now, that I invite us to sit with, along with a few moments of silence, to honor George Floyd and the other men like him before the show begins. What if we responded to the injustices inflicted on human lives with empathy and action rather than defensiveness or apathy? What if we lived as if we truly believed it's not your back or my back, but our back? I'm honored to share today's episode, a conversation 3 years in the making with Macy Stafford that arrives during remarkably challenging times, just as we need Rachel's wisdom most. Rachel is a writer with one goal: to help people choose love as much as humanly possible. A New York Times bestselling author, her latest book is Live, Love, Now: Relieve the Pressure and Find Real Connection with Our Kids. She's also the New York Times bestselling author of Hands-Free Mama, Hands-Free Life, and Only Love Today, a certified special education teacher with a master's degree in education, an in-demand speaker featured on CNN, Good Morning America, Global News, Time.com, FoxNews.com, as well as in hundreds of other online and print publications, and a beloved blogger who inspires millions in her weekly blog posts at handsfreemama.com and through her supportive Facebook community, The Hands-Free Revolution. Before I share more about this episode, I want to welcome Samantha Arsenault Livingstone, one of the millions who has been transformed by Rachel's writing, with this episode's dedication.
Hi, I'm Samantha Arsenault Livingstone, and I am honored to dedicate this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast to Rachel Macy Stafford. What a gift to be able to share this space with you and honor a woman who has profoundly impacted how I show up in my life. As Oprah says, I believe one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is time to be more fully present. Rachel's choice to honor her soul-tugging pulls and courage to share her deepest truths has offered me the permission I needed to do the same. Her willingness to step into the discomfort that comes as we learn how to navigate our inner world, own our mistakes and missteps, and allow ourselves to be seen has shown me what's possible with love. Rachel continues to inspire me to live and lead with grace and compassion, giving me the greatest gift of all, time and presence. I found my way to Rachel's work 4 years ago, just a few months postpartum with my youngest baby girl. In the early hours of the morning, after a 3 a.m. feed, I found myself mindlessly scrolling Facebook, running from the unsettledness I was feeling in my life. It was my first time navigating postpartum depression, which was scary and hard. Mental illness has been part of my story since I was a young teen, but this felt different. I was also learning how to do life with PTSD. 2 years before Reese was born, her big sister Mia had open heart surgery. She was just 12 months old at the time and faced life-threatening complications multiple times post-op. Mia's heart surgery was a spiritual awakening for me, a cracking open. Staring death in the face changed me. And yet 2 years into my healing journey, I found it so hard to meet myself with compassion. On this summer night, I couldn't run any longer. Tears poured down my face as I read Rachel's words. They felt like home to me. My whole self felt safe. I couldn't unsee what Rachel was showing me, a new way of living and loving, and one my soul was longing for. That summer, while watching the Rio Olympics with my 4 girls, I unboxed all of my own Olympic gear after 16 years, and with it was able to shine light on the parts of myself and my story I had deemed too broken to love. In the 4 years since, I've truly come home to myself. And just like my 8-year-old self dreamed of standing atop the Olympic podium, I've given myself permission to dream again. For years, swimming was the vehicle that allowed me to tap into my inner magic. Now my vehicle is motherhood and my business. I'm an Olympic gold medalist, high-performance consultant, mental health educator, and mindfulness instructor. In the fall of 2016, I launched Livingstone High Performance and the Whole Athlete Initiative in response to the mental health crisis impacting our youth. LHP provides pillars of support to individuals, teams, and organizations to elevate mental health and improve performance. I believe that together, we can build an empowered village. I'd love to link arms with you. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, and find a free gift waiting for you at samanthalivingstone.com/control. See you there.
Thank you, Samantha, for sharing your own authentic truths and for the incredible work you do to support young people today. Like you, I stumbled upon Rachel's work years ago, and her writing immediately became a light on my path to more fully live my purpose. I'm so grateful that I had this time to talk with Rachel, to explore the threads of presence and authenticity that weave through so much of her journey, to understand that facing our truths is just the beginning of unexpected invitations, and to remember what's possible for our children to live a present-filled, purpose-filled life when we step forward to do that first. This conversation with Rachel and her beautiful new book, which I hope you will get and savor as I have been doing, will make you want to show up for yourself and your children in profound new ways, and to embody her underlying message, to live, love now. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest. Rachel, welcome to the Mother's Quest podcast. This is such an honor. It's been 3 years in the making. I went back to look at our communication, and I couldn't ask for a more perfect time to have this conversation.
Oh gosh, thank you for not giving up on me and just waiting, because I feel like this is just such a beautiful time for us to come together, and your passion and my passion, and I think we're going to have a beautiful conversation.
We are. And I was just telling you before we pressed record that I do like to set intentions at the start of the call. You said something that really resonated, and I thought it would be good for everyone listening to hear what your intention is coming in, and then I'll share mine quickly too.
Okay, perfect. My intention for today is just really what my intention is anytime that I write or I have a conference or a conversation, is just to relay my most authentic self so that whoever is listening or reading can see themselves in that conversation and say, I thought I was the only one who felt this way, or I thought I was the only one who struggled this way. And to say, okay, I'm not alone. And so I just feel that, when we take off the mask and we come as our most authentic self, that is when connection forms and also hope is born. And so I just really hope today that someone's listening to this and just feels unalone in whatever it is that they're dealing with right now.
And my intention builds so beautifully from yours. I got the hard copy of your book the other day and I was so excited. And I've now been just delving into the pages. And I was reading an excerpt in the book about your daughter, Avery, and how she had the opportunity to go and record a song that she composed. And while in the recording booth, she was really having a hard time authentically connecting. And something that the sound recording studio person said to her changed everything. And it was that to remember that there's a person on the other end of that microphone. And so that's the intention I want to hold today, to both be fully present, to just be in connection with you and have this conversation. And also to know that there are people on the other end who are going to be hearing this and who I hope are also going to be moved, transformed, have some kind of new perspective about how they can connect more meaningfully to themselves and to their children. So thank you for that,
beautiful.
Sharing that in the book, because it really hit me.
I love how you applied that to what your important work is in the world. And I'll be sure to tell her. So thank you.
Yes. So we're going to start where we always do, which is tell me a little bit about your own childhood and the impact that your mother has had in shaping who you are today.
I'm so glad you asked that question. Nobody's asked me that question, I don't think ever in an interview, but talking about how we were raised, how did our family function, what was important to us and how did that shape us? It's so important. And in fact, in my new book, Live, Love Now, I do have many recollections from my childhood. I was surprised by that. I didn't realize that I was going to be going back to that time and looking at who I was, how my parents treated me, and how that shaped me into the parent and the person that I am. But when we can do that, it really sheds a lot of light and it brings a lot of compassion to ourselves when we realize, this is how I was shaped. And I'm very, very blessed to say that my parents were extremely supportive and affirming. They are both social workers. And so they had tools that some parents didn't have. My mom worked outside of the home, which also was kind of a rare thing. And I watched her doing her work. She would work long, long hours. She would work with very vulnerable families. And she would come home and she would talk to my dad. And I would hear about a lot of the struggles. And I thought, I want to do something like that. I want to help people like my mom is helping me. And I think about that sometimes when I work long hours, and I feel guilty sometimes because my work is such a part of my life. And of course, when you work from home, it's hard to have those boundaries. But I remember that my mom, being a full-time working outside of the home, she counted on my sister and I to do a lot of things for ourselves. She gave us the gift of independence. And boy, Rebecca and I did a lot for ourselves that our classmates did not do for themselves. And I think about that and I know that was a gift. And so I feel like in that way, my mom shaped me into becoming who I am and to feel empowered by using the gifts that I have been given. And one thing that she did that I always remember is she left my sister and I little notes. So even when she wasn't there, we could feel her love. And you would find a little note and something that she had asked us to do, whether it was straighten up your room, take a 2-mile walk, to stay healthy in the summer. That was one of our jobs. And she would leave us a little note acknowledging what we had done. And so even though she wasn't there, a lot of the time, I never felt like her love was separated from me. So that's something I love that you asked so that I could share that today.
I'm so glad that you had an opportunity to make the connection. I too feel like when we are able to reflect back on the through line of our life, it makes so much more meaning for where we are today. And as you were talking, the word that was coming to the forefront for me about the gift your mother gave you is presence. And so interestingly, she was able to give you her presence even when she physically couldn't be there through these notes. And presence is such an underpinning of all of your work. And I want to maybe use that as a jumping point to ask you, what is it from those things that shaped you as a child that you feel that you have been on a quest for in your life and your work?
I just feel like I have been on a quest for purpose. And I wasn't quite sure for many decades, really, what was my purpose? Because I did deny myself of what my true dream and my true calling in my heart was. When I was a girl, I loved to write. That was my refuge and my peace. And I felt confident. I felt at peace. There weren't a lot of places where I felt that way. When it came time to make a decision in high school, well, what path are you going to take? I denied myself of the path to be a writer because I didn't think that I could be successful. I didn't think that that was what I was supposed to do, that what people expected me to do, because I was very, very good with children. They kept saying, oh, you should be a teacher. You should be a teacher. And so that's what I did. And I don't regret that I spent several decades teaching because I think it prepared me for what I'm doing now. But I will tell you that I carried a lot of pain in my heart because I denied myself of what my true heart's calling was. And so for decades, like I said, I was on a quest to figure out, why am I here? What legacy do I want to leave? And now that I know that this is what I was born to do, and I'm touching a life with each story that I share, and I just feel so much peace around that. So my quest was purpose. And now that I've found it, there is definitely an inexplicable peace that I feel.
I had my own experience very similar to yours of stepping into what I feel like was more my calling and something that I had been having whispers for and ignoring for many years. And I really relate to that sense of pain and confinement. As I mentioned, I had a spark moment, which was a very spiritual and synchronistic one with 2 birds trapped in my home, which is a tale for another day. But I'm really curious whether you had a spark moment. What caused you to finally choose yourself and your real dreams?
Yeah, I definitely had a spark moment. I was actually out for a run. It was about 9 years ago. And because I had chosen an unauthentic path for myself, it was natural to continue to keep applying more masks, more things that were unauthentic to me. And that's just, they kept piling on. Like the farther and farther I got away from that, what I call my dreamer girl, my 8-year-old self, the more I got away from who I truly was. And I tried to fill that hole with, all these things. I'm trying to accomplish this. I'm trying to be everything for everyone. And, so I'm seeking that purpose, but I'm doing it all the wrong ways. And of course, you come to that place where you can't hold it any longer. And you feel so heavy and so far away from the way that you really truly want to live, you break down. And my husband had been saying things to me, noticing that I was not taking care of myself. I was not myself. And I just ignored him and pushed it away. And so finally, I'm on this run, and this question pops into my head that I'd heard many, many times from very complimentary people. They kept saying, Rachel, how do you do it all? And of course, I would pat myself on the back and say, oh gosh, look at this. I'm just this person who looks like she has it all together. I'm doing all the things. And I was like on that run thinking, answer that question, Rachel. What is the answer to that for real? How do I do it all? Well, here's the honest truth. I do it all because I miss out on life. I miss out on the moments that matter. The laughing, the playing, the resting, the memory making. I'm not doing any of those things because I am maxed out trying to live this life that is not truly my authentic life. And I can't do it anymore. And I don't want to do it anymore. And I was crying so hard that I had to stop. And I watched the tears drip onto my running shoes. And I thought, okay, I'm crying because, man, I've missed out on a lot. I've missed out on a lot of valuable moments, but I'm also crying with relief because once you are willing to admit there is a problem and there's pain and it needs to be dealt with, then there's hope. Then you can make a different choice. Then you can ask for someone to support you. That was my spark moment. And it was not like, oh, okay, I admitted it. Now everything's great. It was a process and it took a lot of time, but that was my starting point. And I look back at that painful, painful moment was a catalyst for growth and for finding my purpose. I have spark moments all the time because that's the world we live in. This is a hard place to keep pushing away all the things that are trying to derail us. And even right now, as I'm launching this book, I'm finding myself being pulled into a place that I don't want to be because it's my nature. I'm very, very driven. I have a very high standard that I set for myself, and I can easily go down a path that is dangerous and unauthentic. And so I'm using the awareness that I have, and I'm asking for help. And I tell people when I'm struggling, it's a lifelong process. And you don't think, oh, I've got this figured out, I'm going to be good. No, but just celebrate when you say, okay, I'm not living how I want to live. I'm going to commend myself right now and say, this is awareness. This is a gift. I'm not going to shame myself because I've let myself slip. I'm going to commend myself for owning this and asking for help.
Wow. I can almost just imagine you on that run. And I'm so grateful that you allowed yourself to stop. I mean, you literally stopped.
Yeah.
And gave yourself the space to make meaning of what was coming up for you. It is reminding me of something that you share in the book, and I've heard you share this in some of your lives recently, that the truth is just the beginning,
yes,
not the end.
That's right.
And that was also true for me the day that I had my spark moment. In that day, I basically put my stake in the ground that I no longer wanted to live a life where I didn't say yes to myself or to what I felt was my authentic calling and to being the fullest expression of who I could be. Since I didn't have the language that day, but since that day have called that living my epic life. It's the life that when I'm hopefully a grandparent sitting with my grandchildren, the life that's filled with all the experiences, the challenges, the lessons that matter most, so that I can be telling them and sharing those things with them.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it also is an acronym mnemonic for the guideposts that I think help us to live that life when we're raising our children. So I want to delve into these guideposts now with you and hear what wisdom and reflection comes up for you about how these guideposts are showing up in your life.
Great.
Okay. The first one, E, stands for engaged mindfully with our children. What have you learned, and maybe what particular lessons have been coming out in your most recent book about how we can engage mindfully with our kids?
So I have this expression that I say, I want to love you by your book. I want to learn you. I want to study you. I want to observe you. What makes you laugh? What makes you sad? What makes you scared? What makes you light up? And I started trying to love my daughters by their book, around the same time that I started my hands-free journey 9 years ago, because I realized there's certain things that every single person has that makes them show up as their truest self. And I really wanted my daughters to live a life of authenticity, not a life that they had to hide or curtail into something that they thought was be more pleasing. But I wanted them to be able to show up as themselves and connect with others from that place. And so I just thought, okay, I'm going to study them. I'm going to learn these things about them, and then I'm going to love them that way. And my daughters are very, very different. And so what works for one doesn't always work for the other. But I noticed with my younger daughter, Avery, there's just certain things that did not feel comfortable to her. One of her things is being rushed. Time is what makes her thrive. And so I realized a lot of the things that I was doing, because I'm very schedule driven and productivity driven. And so a lot of the ways that I tried to love her were in contrast to the way that she truly felt like she was able to thrive. And so figuring that out about Avery was very helpful to the way that we began to connect with each other. And so I let Avery welcome me into her world, which her world is music, and she likes to have long conversations, and we're not like in action, because I'm all about, let's take a walk and talk about this. That's more Natalie. She'll do more active things, and we'll do active things together. And that's kind of like how we connect. But Avery's more like, let's chill, and just kind of let things unfold. And so I just think if I was giving anyone suggestions, I would say, kind of just let your expectations go for what kind of relationship you're going to want to have, or what activities you want to do with your child. But sometimes it works just to say, hey, this afternoon, I have some free time. I'd really like to spend time together. What would you like to do? And it may not be something that you enjoy doing, but that's okay, because when they invite us into their world, that's a gift. And the sooner that you can start creating this ritual of connection to be invited is helpful. There's nothing wrong with inviting them into something that you might be doing. One of the things that brings me joy is just getting things organized. I love cleaning out a pantry or cleaning out a closet. And it's funny because I'll invite my daughters to do that with me. And sometimes, it's not always like, oh yeah, I really want to do that. But eventually they'll come and we'll start doing it together. And those unexpected invitations into our worlds, into her world, into my world, they bring really beautiful moments. So I just feel like in today's world, we don't always have reason to work side by side like we did maybe when we were growing up. It's like we did things together as a family. But now I feel like we are more separated due to technology and due to our busy lives. So I think we need to be really intentional about the invitation and using that to bring each other into our worlds.
I love that. I'm thinking about, I don't know if you choose words for the year or themes for the year, but my theme for this year was structure and synchronicity. I'm thinking about in connecting with our kids, how might there sometimes be things that are structured or planned, but then how do we also allow for those magical moments that we could never even dream up ourselves and actually say yes to them when they arrive right in front of us?
Yeah, that's a great point.
I want to ask you about the next guidepost then, which is P. It stands for passionate and purposeful. And this is about the impact that you are here to make beyond your family. You've already shared a little bit that writing and being your authentic self, that those are part of the foundation of what you realize you're here for. I'd also love to hear a little bit about the birth of Hands-Free Mama as a framework or way of living for you and how that has evolved into the mission of your book today.
Hands-Free Mama really started because of my own spark moment that we had talked about on the run. I really just got in touch with that dreamer inside me that just wouldn't let go of this idea that I was supposed to write a book. I had kind of held on to that for all those decades. So about 10 years ago, that's when the blog world just really started catching on and people were starting blogs and it was like the new thing. And I couldn't tell you how many people, and I would just write birthday cards or people would see my writing in everyday ways and they'd say, you need to start a blog. And in fact, my sister sent me a book, How to Start a Blog. It was like all these signs were like, okay, Rachel, I think you're supposed to share this. Well, I'd have my spark moment and I thought, oh my goodness, maybe as I work to try to live a more peaceful, presence-filled, and purposeful life, one that feels more authentic to me, maybe I'm supposed to be documenting this. Maybe I'm supposed to share this. And so for several months, I did not tell anybody what I was doing, but I was calling it going hands-free. I was really being mindful to let go of all the distractions around me and in me, because you have distractions inside you too. But I thought, okay. And I started with just small increments, 10 minutes. I thought 10 minutes, you're going to go hands-free and you're going to let go and you're going to see what happens. Well, for several months, I did this and it really made a huge, immediately, my daughters were 7 and 4 at the time, and they noticed my new presence. They noticed, they responded to it. I felt more at peace. So I shared it with my husband one day. He was about to take him to the Science Museum. And I said, by the way, I'm living hands-free. I'm working on this concept of trying to just have these times of day when I just let go of everything and I just be in this moment. And he just kind of was like, oh, okay, that's good, And then a few minutes later, he said, now that you mention it, I did notice there was something different about you, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Well, he comes back from the museum a few hours later and he said, I tried your hands-free concept. I said, really? He said, I can't remember the last time I enjoyed being with the girls because I didn't get my phone out. I didn't think about work. I didn't compare myself to what the other dads were doing. I just let myself be in that moment. That was my confirmation. I thought, I really am supposed to share. And then my sister's blogging book was sitting there. And I thought, okay, I hear you, God. I know what I'm supposed to do. And I'm a private person. I don't like to be in the limelight. I don't like people to know my private thoughts. I don't want to gloss over that I just threw a blog post up there and went, oh, here I go. I was like, if I'm doing this, I'm going to be real. I'm going to be honest. And I'm going to say things that are hard to say out loud. But that is how I wanted to do this. I wanted to be all in and I wanted to be real. And I knew from the get-go that my goal was not to have a blog that was like millions of people read. I didn't want awards and it was not about that. My goal was touch one life with every story you write, just one person. If one person feels less alone, then you will know that you've showed up to do what you're supposed to do. That was my goal then. It's still my goal now. And I just listened to my heart and just kept thinking, okay, I'm not doing what society says is success. I'm doing what my heart tells me is success. And so that would be my encouragement to anybody who is thinking about what kind of impact do I want to make? Why am I here? So many times we're led to believe that it has to be something momentous and public recognition or something like that, when really it's all about what is meaningful to you. And it may not look like success to anybody else, and that is okay.
I would love to hear how you have taken your own personal learnings about purpose and been able to bring some insight to your teenagers as they're struggling to define themselves in the world.
One thing that I've noticed, I've connected with hundreds, if not thousands, of young people for my book, Live, Love Now. That was quite by accident. But again, your heart starts to lead you. And then you say, oh, okay, this isn't my plan. This is not about me. I'm going to go with it. And so I was privy to information from kids about what it's like to try to navigate the world that it is today for teenagers. So they're navigating things that we didn't have to navigate. One of my main concerns as I talk to them about how much they're handling and balancing, particularly because the online world creates this whole realm of distraction, pressure, insecurity, a sense of not belonging that they are dealing with. And one of my concerns is how much the online world and their online life distracts them or derails them from their purpose. Not many kids probably know what their purpose is, but they are right now supposed to be on a purpose discovery process. We're all on a purpose discovery process. But if you think about what the online world and your phone and all the information coming at you every day, if you think about how often it stops you from focusing, from listening to your heart, from doing what you feel called to do, it's very concerning to me. And so as soon as I put that together for myself, that I feel like the biggest cost of technology is depriving ourselves of purpose. I really feel like that's one of the biggest costs that we don't even see happening. But I started talking to my daughters about it because I wanted them to be aware. That's how I approach everything about technology, is through bringing awareness to people and bringing awareness to my own self, my own daughters, and empowering them. Because I can say, hey, I'm giving you 2 hours on your phone and then I'm cutting you off. I could very well say that, but I say, here's why we're going to set some boundaries. Here's why you don't want to spend 5 hours on your phone. And I mean, some of the things that I have to discuss with them, they are not pleasant because I've read a lot of studies. And if you're on your phone more than 5 hours a day as a teenager with your brain that's still developing, your chances of having suicidal thoughts and suicidal tendencies go up dramatically. That's not just my opinion. This is studies. Jean Twenge wrote a book called iGen, and it's so enlightening. And those are the kind of things I tell my daughters because they need to know if they're going to make smart decisions for themselves. And so oftentimes we talk about what are the best ways to study. Let me tell you, it is not having your phone sitting by your desk. Reduces your productivity. It takes 20 minutes to get back to the focus level that you had before you were interrupted. Those are the kind of things I share with them. And I've noticed they don't always change behavior right away, but I watch and I see something that I've told them, some tool that I've given them, they start to use it. That to me shows that they're capable of making good decisions, but we have to give them the information and the tools and the ability to make their own decisions. If we don't give them the chance how do they learn to make good decisions? And yes, they are going to make bad decisions. And we step in and we say, all right, you tried that. It didn't work. Let's have a different tool. Let's see what we can come up together. My book, Live, Love Now, is all about changing our role. The authoritarian role of parenting is not going to work for this generation of kids. What I recommend is to be an encourager, a guide, a truth teller. Those are the three roles that will allow us to walk beside our kids and navigate these tough territories that no other parent has ever had to navigate before. So I'm glad you asked that.
At the time of recording, we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and many of us, most of us, if we're not essential workers, sheltering in place. And I think parents are finding the challenges around screen time boundaries even more challenging right now. The boundaries around when you need to go to sleep and wake up are not there. And so what you have in the book and what you just shared with me, I think is so helpful about how we can approach this, to not come down as this authoritarian person with like, you shall not, but to really engage them in a conversation and help them set boundaries. So I'm going to be doing that with my teenager who was up extremely late last night, even later than me. Before we move to the next guidepost, I wanted to just say two things. One, what you were alluding to earlier is this process that you were using where you brought index cards to kids in high schools. And I really want to encourage people to get the book and read about that process, because it was missing in terms of the presence you experienced there. And I ended up writing on a Post-it last night again, this quote that you have in that post: there will be wonderful things that will never be done if you do not do them, with a picture of a clock. And just this reminder that, we can choose the things that are calling to us that we know are our purpose, or we can choose to mindlessly scroll. And the pull is real. And it's something I really struggle with. So I'm going to link to that blog post as well, which I found immensely helpful.
Thank you.
So we're going to move through these next two guideposts a little bit more quickly because we're getting close to the end of our time. The next guidepost, I, stands for invested in yourself. And this is about our own commitment, our own growth, our own self-care. What would you say is the biggest insight that you have learned for yourself about this?
I would just say, to find whatever your place of refuge is. I feel like it's so important for our kids to have a place of refuge, and we need to model that. So each day, if possible, it may not be every day, but go to the place or the activity that helps you just breathe, a place that you can be yourself, a place that you can kind of get in touch with your feelings, your heart, and listen to yourself. We do not stop and listen to ourselves. And for me, walking is my place of peace. Being in the sun, being outside, watching the trees. I get so rejuvenated when I do that. And I make a pact with myself every day. I do not care how busy I am, what's going on in my life. Even if I can just get out for 10 minutes, which sometimes I'll say, just get out there for 10 minutes. And I end up going longer because, usually when you get out there and start doing what gives you peace, you say, you know what, that stuff that I thought was so important, it doesn't matter as much as my health and my well-being. So find that place of peace, find that activity that you can breathe and do it as much as you can, and encourage your children to have their refuge. That was one thing that concerned me so much when I talked to kids in classrooms and they gave their honest responses about what it was like to be living in this world right now. And they said, I just want time to be a kid. I just want time to breathe. So please, if you do anything, find those places of refuge and support your children in finding theirs.
And what I love so much about everything that you write about and talk about is the importance of modeling, the importance of us taking responsibility for ourselves first, and then how instructive and inspirational that can be for our kids by our own example.
Thank
it's really
you.
true with what you just shared again. The last guidepost, C, stands for connected to a strong support network. And it's the realization that we do not need to be alone on our journeys, on our quest. Where have you found the connections that have supported you on your journey?
Like I was just talking about, my places of peace, my places of refuge, going to the things that my heart calls me to do, like going to hear one of my favorite authors, Glennon, spoke a few years ago when I was new to my area and I went by myself, which again, that's not something that's really comfortable to me. But I thought, okay, I'm going to just do the things that my heart is calling me to do. And maybe that's how I'll meet people. And sure enough, I ended up meeting a woman there named Megan, who is now one of my best friends, my soul sister, who has helped me through even this writing of this book. She was with me. Another thing that came on my heart when we moved here 6 years ago was, are you ever going to go work and volunteer at a cat shelter? You've been wanting to do that your whole life. So what did we do? My daughters and I started working at the cat shelter. I have made beautiful friendships with the women who volunteer there. So my recommendation to people is do the things that your heart is calling you to do and find your people that way, because then you can be your authentic self. You know, there's nothing worse than forcing yourself to go to a group that you're not really going to because you feel like that's going to fulfill you, because then that connection that you make is not going to be an authentic one. It's not going to be fulfilling. And also my writing has brought me some of the most treasured friendships. I have friends that I've never met in person that I would tell my deepest, darkest secrets to, because they get me. You know, if anyone can read my blog and still love me and say, she's a mess, but you know, we're all a mess if we really are honest about it. And we say, oh, goodness gracious, I'm so glad I can be with someone that I can be real with. And so again, that's another thing. My heart called me to write, and I had no idea the friendships and the sisterhood that would be waiting for me there.
We're at the end of our conversation. I've had so many light bulb moments and so many things that you shared that really resonate. We're going to close with acknowledgements, but before we do that, you have an opportunity to give me a specific challenge, something you would invite me to say yes to that will help me more fully live my epic life. And anybody who's listening can also choose to say yes to this challenge.
So this is interesting because yesterday I had a Facebook Live with my launch team for Live Love Now. And I hadn't done a Facebook Live up until 6 weeks ago when my launch team started and my marketing team said, you have to do Facebook Lives. And I was like, I don't want to do Facebook Lives. Don't make me do that. Well, I like Facebook Lives. I have no idea. It's like talking to someone in real time and they're commenting. And so I got really, really vulnerable yesterday. And my launch team, we were talking about the very last part of the book. And there was this beautiful sentence that I wanted to read to them that was actually kind of goes through the whole last chapter and is the last part of the book. But that sentence came from one of the most hurtful, shaming comments that I received about my work a couple years ago. And I honestly thought about taking everything down and stopping. And I worked through that. And that woman's shaming, awful comment that went right to my heart. I mean, I get criticisms and I get trolls and things, but this one, she really hit me in a really sensitive part of me, a vulnerable spot. And it was almost too much for me. I told my group the whole story and they cried with me and they said, I'm so glad you did not let that woman stop you from what you are born to do. And so my challenge to you, because this is what happened in my group, a few people shared some of the most hurtful comments that they've received that they've carried with them. And so if I would challenge you to think about something hurtful, a belief, a comment, a criticism that you are carrying, and maybe you don't even realize you're carrying it. It's maybe something that you just become aware of. and say, you know what? I'm going to tell somebody. I'm not going to hold this to my heart any longer. I'm going to let it go. And if you're like me, take it and make something beautiful out of it. Take it and say, look what I did. I took my pain and I gave it purpose. And now I'm free.
Amazing. Okay. So some reflection involved in thinking about what hurtful comments have I received that are holding me back and how I can take the pain of that and turn it into purpose. All right.
Perfect.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, wow. So many things that I'm taking, a huge thread around presence and authenticity, this belief that it is powerful to face our truths and that that's really just the beginning, to look out for unexpected invitations and to really be willing to embrace what we know deep down is our purpose and commit to more fully living a presence-filled, purposeful life and what's possible for our children when we step forward to do that ourselves first. I'm really holding all of that in an even deeper way after this conversation. And I also want to make a pledge to you, if it's okay with you, to read something from your book.
Yeah.
It's page 57. And when I read it, I just immediately felt the truth of every word of it. So this is my promise. It is not my job to evaluate myself or my child. My job is to show up as I am, bravely, boldly, flawed, and full of hope, to share my gifts with the world. And in doing so, I provide an example that will encourage my children to connect with others as their most authentic selves. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. That was a beautiful read.
What, if anything, are you taking from our time together in this conversation for yourself?
Well, I'm just taking kind of a moment to just marvel at the fact that you and I connected several years ago and that we've stayed in each other's realm and you've bloomed, your work is blooming. We're both doing what our heart has called us to do. And here we are together in this moment. This moment is a big moment for me with launching this book and just, the fact that you want to stand beside me in this moment. It feels kind of like a miracle, really, to me. And so I wish this kind of support for everyone. And I thank you for the support that you provide so many women through the hard work that you do, because I know this is hard work and your days are long and the work is never done. And here you are just showing up, not just for them, but for other women like me. And so I just find that really a miracle in this world. And what a gift right now to be able to connect with people when we are isolated and alone in our homes, and we have a community like yours where we can gather and feel hope. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Rachel. I have tears streaming down my face. Just, feeling so blessed too to have this conversation and circling back to our original intentions.
Yes.
Really, truly believing and knowing that someone, at least someone else, needed to hear this conversation today.
Yes.
Thank you. I wish you the most unbelievable success and fulfillment and purpose-filled impact with your beautiful book, Live, Love Now. And I hope this is the start of many more conversations for us.
Same to you. Thank you, Julie, so much.
Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about how to join the Mother's Quest community, visit mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and help us to spread the word. I want to end with some words to help light the way on your quest. Seize the day, love your people, honor your gifts. Until next time.